Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to Launch Week 15.1. Today's webinar, What's New for Reporting and Dashboards, presented by DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall and Technical Evangelist Paul Usher. In this session, see all the new features we'll introduce across our reporting and dashboard platforms, including a preview of our upcoming WPF Report Designer. All right, thank you for joining us. I will now hand things over to Julian and Paul.
Julian. 15.1 launch week. What is most exciting is the fact that yesterday I received an email, as I'm sure all of our customers did, saying that we can download the brand new subscription.
Absolutely. From yesterday, I don't know, it was about lunchtime, my time, I suppose. We put up version 15.1 of DevExpress Universal, of CodeRush, of DevExtreme, and obviously Test Cafe. That was up, was it 2 weeks ago? Because you did a webinar on it, I seem to remember.
I certainly did.
So 15.1 is available, so while you're listening to this and watching, you can just nip over to your browser and start downloading the install.
No. Wait till after the presentation, Julian. We don't want people fiddling. Now, reporting and dashboards, there is so many different facets to this that it's not just two quick topics. So I thought what we could do today is start out by just taking a very quick look at what different products reporting and dashboards actually cover. And before you ask the question, I'm sorry, Julian, but you're going to have to do dashboards.
Oh, okay. Dashboards. Yeah, give me 5 minutes. I'll quickly learn about it.
Install 15.1 and watch some YouTube videos.
Exactly.
Now, the concept of reporting obviously is not new, and we think that the reporting suite that we've delivered and continue to build on is one of the best for the .NET framework in the world. But what does it actually encompass? Well, to start with, you've got the rich environment of Visual Studio, and you can create your reports directly inside Visual Studio, so you're not having to spin out into some other product. The really nice thing here is the fact that you can consume data from any .NET data object. So we're talking SQL data sources, ODBC data sources, and with that, any of the external database products that they connect to. So SQL, Oracle, I used the word Paradox earlier, but then I got laughed at because apparently that's still old.
Old school.
Now, what's important to think about here, though, is it's not just about traditional databases. You can also create your reports from an XML list. And I think even more powerful is the ability to bind it to an iList or a collection of objects from an iList or an IEnumerable source. I was talking to a developer recently who's created quite a complex 60-page report from multiple sources using that functionality, and he said, quite frankly, if it wasn't for the ability to bind to plain object collections with IEnumerable, he wouldn't have been able to deliver this report whatsoever. Now, on top of that, we supply a royalty-free end-user report designer. There's no additional licenses. You can give your customers the ability to create or modify reports without anything else required. And this is supported multiple platforms. So we've got one for WPF, we've got the web-based one now, and of course we've got WinForms. And we even still have a Silverlight one. When it comes to creating reports, you've got the ability of doing your stock standard things like maybe sales invoices or purchase orders, common, simple to produce things. But you've also got the ability of doing report merging. So maybe you've got half a dozen reports and you want to create a binding or a folder with those. You can actually merge all the reports together and even do things like recapture the page numbers so that you get a nice sequential set of numbers going through those merged reports. You can do side-by-side reports, create master detail and sub-reports. We've got the ability to create drill downs, and there's some new functions being delivered in 15.1 for that purpose. You can create multi-column reports where you can specify the direction of the data, either down the page then across or across then down. You can create mailing labels or other labels and document maps. There is a lot of power inside that reporting engine. As far as elements on your report page, we've got support for barcodes, and there's over 20 different providers there. Create table of contents, insert shapes, add sparklines, charts, gauges, insert page information on your report, such as who's printing it, when they're printing it, the report name or other parameters. And you can do things like create cross-band boxes and lines, which is where you might want a nice box wrapped around the entire report and not broken just because there's different sections in there. We've got support for zip code elements and things like that. So again, just everything that you could imagine you'd need in a reporting package is included in the extra report suite. Now when it comes to dashboards, they say that a picture paints 1,000 words. The dashboard product itself is, think of it as a no-code solution. You can create the dashboard designer and then very easily implement a number of different elements onto your dashboard, including, but not limited to, charts, pivot tables, card views, powerful grids with filters, gauges. You could have your user be able to limit data that's been seen with the range filter, incorporate sparklines, shapefile maps, and calculated fields. Now, with the dashboard, you've got this integrated designer, so the no-code approach, and you've got the ability to include drill downs and data filtering. And of course, the nice thing here is the fact that the end user has got a self-service capability where they can customize things themselves as well. One of the things that I find often when I'm talking to developers is that they're not quite sure as to all of the different elements we have inside our non-visual libraries. And we've got this product called Document Server. There's a lot of times where you might want to interact with different elements, such as Excel spreadsheets, Microsoft Word documents, or RTF files. And you can do that using the Document Server library, which allows you to read and write, manipulate any of those elements without having to worry about the UI layer. The library also supports the ability to create and modify snap reports. It opens up our PDF document processing, so you can create, update, modify PDF documents, again without having that UI layer. You can generate barcodes. And interestingly, we've even included things like zip compression and unit conversion. So there's little things that you might otherwise have to run off to maybe an open source library or something else. It's already included in your DevExpress suite, and it can become really powerful for keeping some of that utility type functionality inside your application. We have another product called Report Server. Now, Report Server is designed for enterprise reporting. The idea again is a no-code approach where you can have a centralized reporting system pushing reports out to groups of users. It features things such as the built-in report designer, full user management, it's got enterprise level security, report versioning, and a simple way of distributing your reports. So when we mention reporting, dashboarding, you need to think that there's a lot of different products and different scenarios that you can utilize from the suites. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to take you through reporting, and Julian's going to take a look at dashboards. But Julian, I think that's a little unfair because it seems that I'm carrying all the work.
Well, that's why you earn the big bucks.
I do know that you presented the WPF Report Designer the other day, so maybe you can help out when we get to that and share some of your wisdom.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's people here who didn't see the WPF webinar we did on Tuesday, and so it's still brand new, so watch and learn.
Okay, so reporting. We've added some new controls to the reporting suite. In particular, we've got the Community Technology Preview, or CTP, of our WPF Report Designer. Now, this is an important step forward in the life of WPF. If you've been following any of my blogs or some of the webinars we've done on WPF, I believe that is definitely the desktop way of the future. So to see the introduction of this really important aspect of reporting into WPF, I think, is testament to how focused we are as a company on supporting that future technology. We've also introduced the WPF Document Preview control, which I'll be showing, and a brand new HTML5 JavaScript document viewer as well. Enhancements to the reporting libraries, we've got cross-platform enhancements. Now, what I mean by that, obviously, because we've got reporting solutions to other platforms, not just WinForms, WPF, but we've got the web-based ones as well, we've introduced things like the multi-value lookup parameters. This means that your end users can actually select more than one result from, say, a drop-down and pass it through to your report. We've got automatic drill downs, and we'll be taking a look at that in a little bit more detail, but now you can create interactive drill down reports without writing any code. We've introduced some easy access formatting and styling rules. So inside your report designer, you can quite literally keep a small library of your favorite styles or things to do with your report and just drag them onto the reporting elements. We've added the ability to bind sub-reports directly to master report data fields. So in this scenario, you can create sub-reports linked to the master report, again, without writing any code. Other things include the replacement of the original XR rich text control. It's been updated now with a more powerful extra rich edit control. You can suppress duplicated bookmark names. And there's been other enhancements to do with layouts and dialogues, etc. When it came to ASP.NET and MVC, we've introduced one of the most widely asked for features, which is the script editor. We've added the support for the formatting rules, and we've also introduced a filter editor and an expression editor, as well as a brand new data source wizard inside the Web Report Designer, which also allows you to create joins and filtering at the data source level. The data access layer, we've added enhancements to the query grid, support for sorting and grouping, support for aggregate functions, and on-demand column loading. We've also added support for Teradata. So now in the list of data providers, you can choose a Teradata database from that. And Julian's got some exciting news to do with some of the big data providers for dashboards as well. We've also done a lot of work in optimization and reduced the memory consumption for the SQL data source. So when you're binding to a lot of different numeric data types or large data sets, you're going to notice some increased performance in that area. Now, the document server, so that non-UI library, it's had a number of elements increased. So the PDF document processor, you've now got the ability to write directly to a PDF document, including graphics. So you can implement your own images, strings, lines, shapes. You've got the ability to actually digitally sign your PDF document. You can now also interact with the password protection on a lot more levels. So not only have you got the ability to set the master password and the user password, you've also got the ability to set different permissions. So you can nominate whether you want them to be able to print or extract data or even modify the PDF itself. There's some big improvements with memory usage and performance, and you can now merge interactive form data directly with the PDF, and we'll take a quick look at that as we move on. The rich editor we've exposed the layout API, which means that you can traverse through the document information and either provide access to it inside your UI elements or just be able to manipulate the layout or the document via the layout API a lot easier. We've also added a brand new Excel export data engine. Now, think about the scenario where you may want to create basic spreadsheets or spreadsheets with a lot of data that you're bringing from other sources. The Excel export library allows you to create the spreadsheet. It allows you to work with worksheets, columns, rows, cells. including the full access cell formatting, including filling, alignments, borders, fonts, all the things that you'd expect to be able to integrate with or interact with. You can add formulas and hyperlinks. You can create the merge cells, work with pictures, apply filters and data grouping, all again at a library level. And the performance is insane. It really is a very, words are escaping me fast process to work with.
When in doubt, use normal words. It's
like
fast. Yes.
The spreadsheet document server control, again, has had a number of API improvements applied. So you can utilize or access more functionality in the background there. The report server product itself has now got the functionality of being able to email your reports to external recipients. So that means users that aren't necessarily included in your user management area. And that's again something that people are being asking for. Now, I mentioned before about the PDF document processor. This slide just gives you a bit of an idea as to the amount of work that's been done behind the scenes on this. In 14.2, to load a 3,000 page, now that's a substantial size document, into the control was taking about 23 seconds. In 15.1, we've got that around about 5 seconds, which you can see is just a fraction slower than the Adobe libraries themselves. So that is some really fast or major improvements in that area. The same with memory consumption. 14.2, we were up around 360 meg. For that document, we're down to 94, which again is just sitting above Adobe themselves. So that's a huge improvement in that. But let's now jump over and step through some of the demos in the demo center to look at 15.1 in action. What I think we'll start with is a quick look at the PDF changes. So I'm going to launch the demo center 15.1, and I'll start by running document server. Now, I've got an instance of Visual Studio with the source code open, so we'll jump to that in just 1 second. But I'm going to invoke the WinForms demo. And we can have a look at the PDF drawing API. Now, quite simply, when I click on the Create Document button, I'm going to end up with a PDF page that has obviously some straight text information. We're seeing lines, different font sizes, and an image. And just to show you how easy it is to implement that, here's the code, which of course ships with the demo, as does all our source code. On the Create Document click event, we're creating an empty document. We've got the ability of setting the document metadata properties, so the creator, the author, the keywords, etc. A new page is then instantiated using the Add New Page method. And we can see that using the PDF graphics object here, we're simply calling the bitmap image, adding in the Northwind picture file. We've set the height, width, and then specified where on the page we want it to be. And then using a couple of calls to the font and graphics APIs, we can actually put in the data as we saw. So creating your own PDFs and writing directly to the page is really quite straightforward. We can see that once we've done that, we add the page to the collection and then save that back out and render it back on the screen. The next one for PDF is the signature. So if you wanted to apply a digital signature to make a document, I suppose, legally binding, then that can be done really quite easily. Again, we'll jump into Visual Studio and we'll look at the signature demo. Now, there's a lot of different parts to this, all to do with the way that the signature file is loaded, but the thing we're really interested in is how to apply it. So here we can see that the signature is instantiated and the basic information set up here, and again, really just a call to the saved document passing in the signature object. So as far as being able to do this inside your own code, really quite straightforward. One of the features that we introduced as a maintenance update in test or beta preview was the form filling data. Now, if you've ever worked with PDFs, you'll know that it can be really handy just to be able to pass in your own data into those form fields. So here we're setting up the PDF form data object, and then once we've got that, we're simply specifying each of the form fields by string and setting the objects themselves. Once that's done, we load the actual document, apply the form data object to it, and then save it back out. So it's really simple to be able to fill out or process those PDF forms. Now what we'll do is jump over and start having a look at some of the reporting updates. So close this one down and then launch the reporting demos. Now I'm going to start by looking at the HTML document viewer. So to do this, I'm simply going to launch the local instance of the reporting samples, choose report types, and I'm going to choose the drill down report so I can show you a couple of things all in one go. From the drill down report, you'll see that we've changed this demo page around a little bit. You see now we can choose between the standard ASP.NET viewer and the new HTML JavaScript viewer. You'll notice with this view control, it's got all the elements that you'd expect, so we can toggle between single and multi-page mode. We've got our zooming functionality, print setup, and our export all along the toolbar, and I can do a search and find different elements. As well as that, I've got access to the configuration pages, which as I pop that out, give me the ability to work with different export modes and specify different parameters that I might want when actually exporting the data. I'll just collapse that up a little bit as well. It's got the pixel scrolling built in. It's a really nice, rich, smooth experience. Now, one thing I did say that was new in 15.1 is this ability to create drill downs. And you can see here that we've got more like a summary page of different products. But if I click on this Show Details option, we can see that the report almost unfolds or unhides that detail. And so I can do that with multiple sections. So at this point, I've now got a multi-page report. I can switch to page 2, and all those are still hidden. One of the questions that was asked when we started presenting this was, well, that's nice, but if I actually print that, am I going to see all these things saying hide details and show details, and how's it going to look? I thought the easiest way to show you that would be to export this report to a PDF and show you the result. So now as I open that PDF, you can see that those bands, the hide details, show details, are automatically stripped off when you print or export. And it still maintains just the elements that I've actually exposed. So you end up with a beautiful looking report. Now, what I want to do is now switch to the HTML Report Designer. And this has received some really good feedback from the developer community since it was introduced in the 14.x release. One of the widest features requested was the introduction of the scripting tools. Now, obviously, with our reporting engine, it's very powerful to be able to work at a report level and interact with the data and do specific things as a report builder or report designer. So now what we've got the ability of doing is actually working with that script file directly in the browser. The first thing I want to do is come to Behavior and scroll down to Scripts, and you can see that we've got support under Scripts for the script language. So inside here you can now write your scripts in C#, VB, or JavaScript, and depending on which language you've got selected, when you invoke the script editor, which is this little scroll button here, I can select an element. So let's just say maybe the picture box, and then I can look at events that are available. So if I choose after print or before print, we're going to see that that function is created using a JavaScript notation. And so if I'd have done that inside, say, C#, I'd get a slightly different syntax coming through. And the editor does have syntax checking so that you can't make silly mistakes. You are protected, as we've seen in other products such as Test Cafe. Next, we'll take a quick look at the WPF reporting. Now, before I ask Julian to jump in, I'm going to show you the WPF Document Viewer. Again, like we saw with the HTML one, we've introduced this really nice, rich, smooth scrolling viewing element. And again, using that same example report with the details, you can see just how rich that experience is. This is going to replace the previous viewing tool that was available in WPF, and it enhances that entire user experience. But now what I want to do is actually invoke the Report Designer, which of course is still CTP or beta, and I'm going to ask Julian to jump in and give us a bit of an overview as to what's happening in the designer.
So in essence, you've already been showing our audience the Report Designer for other platforms, and we've essentially replicated the same for WPF. So on the left-hand side over there, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm just going to bring up a report that's has a little bit more information to.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That
okay. So if you make it full screen.
There we go.
So there on the left-hand side is our toolbox with a bunch of different controls that you can drop onto the surface, onto the designer surface. And there's a full property editor as well. And if you look at the side of the designer, right on the side, you'll see the various bands shown in different colors and different orientations and all the rest of it. So it gives you a great idea of seeing where that you have, for example, sub-reports, as we have in this particular case. And so we're seeing the ability for the WPF designer to do all of the things you pretty much want it to do. The only there are a few things which are not there at present. So data access, there's no wizard as yet. It's a little awkward. You have to do a bit of coding and so on and so forth. But in essence, it's pretty much all there with regard to designing reports. Oh, very nice little blob at the top of the page there.
Thank you.
It's pretty much all there. It is a CTP, it is a beta, and I would personally say if you want to use it in your production applications, be warned, there are bugs. And there are obviously, functionality is not all there yet. We'll be adding that as we go through the next 6 months to 15.2. So in minor releases, you should see some new things suddenly appear with the WPF Report Designer. So if you want to use it, have at it. My recommendation is to wait a little longer, perhaps. You play around with it by all means and understand what it can and cannot do.
We want feedback too, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, of course. Please do tell us via our support center what you think of it, and any issues you run into, or get some more information about what's missing and what's being added, and so on.
Now, the last thing that I want to show you inside the Report Designer, thank you, Julian, is the new style feature. You'll notice inside the Report Explorer that we have this thing called styles. So what I can actually do here is come along and create a style using the property grid. I can set up, we call it maybe my style, if I spell it correctly, and come through and then set different properties that I want to apply specifically to a control. And of course, at that point, all I would need to do would be grab the style I want and drag it onto the elements that I want it to apply to. So therefore, when the report is run, I'm going to get that nice output. What's really handy here is that you can create your collection of your favorite styles and keep them on the side rather than having to go through and select a bunch of properties and manually, or bunch of controls and manually set properties. So that's a really nice addition to the Report Designer. Now, Julian, I'm thinking we should switch over and you can share some dashboard goodness.
So, dashboards. And for 15.1, we have 3 main new features for the dashboards. First of all is something we've been adding across our range of controls, I'd say, is the ability to apply Excel-like, that's Microsoft Excel-like, conditional formatting to individual grid and pivot table items. So it gives you the opportunity to highlight specific cells or values within your grids, and you basically have a set of predefined rules, or you set your own rules. We'll see that in a moment. Then we have calculated fields at the summary level, and that's something that people have been asking for a little while, and I'll be showing you that too. And then we have a brand new data access engine. In fact, this data access engine is being applied across reporting and dashboards. It's a way for us to centralize how we present you, the developer, with the ability to select your data from various different places, various different sources, I should say. And the interesting thing about the new data access engine is we've included support for Amazon Redshift, Teradata, and soon, and you didn't hear it from me, Google BigQuery. So if you've got big data and you want to analyze it using our dashboards, we are adding the facility step by step to access these big data providers. I have no information for this particular webinar on how this is actually set up, because to be honest, I only saw this in an email this morning. So you are, because you're in this webinar, you are the first people to hear about this. Anyway, so without further ado, let's have a quick look at 15.1 in action with regard to the dashboards. So here's one of our demos. We'll start the demo. And what we have is a standard-looking dashboard. We have a group of items, dashboard items. We have a grid here. We have a little chart here. We have some gauges going on here. We have a nice range control so we can select data to view within our dashboard and so on. That's not what I'm going to show here. I'm just going to go into the edit part of things. I'll drag the designer onto my main screen here. And the very first thing I want to show you is the ability to create calculated fields at the summary level. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to have a sum, and I'm going to basically show the difference between actual sales versus our targeted sales. Now, as you can see, I can either type it in or even use the expression editor. We have a whole bunch of fields here. I'm going to use sales target, and here we have sales minus sales target. Boom. So I now have this new field called calculated field 1, but because I tend to prefer names that I can understand rather than names that are chosen for me, let's call this diff versus target. How about that? Oops. So difference versus target. And now let's add that as an extra column in this nice grid here. So I'm going to drag it onto the new column. So here we have not very much code at all. In fact, no code at all if you discount the expression editor. We've already added a new calculated summary field, and we've added it as a column in here. But as you see, I mean, it's kind of complicated to understand what the heck is going on with this particular thing. There's some millions here. There's negative values, and oh, we have a something K. So what I want to do now is let's add a new conditional format rule whereby I can add more information to this particular column by coloring it in a different way. So I'm going to use a 3-range conditional format, and the ranges I'm going to do is I want to see those items which are greater than 1 million. Another range will be between 0 and 1 million, and then anything that's negative. So we're not using percentages here. So the first of all is, let's set our bottom range. So our top range is infinity, bottom range is minus infinity. And so anything greater than 1 million, and between 1 million and 0 and infinity, and we'll just add that to this particular column. And it becomes a lot clearer now, in a sense. I can understand, the blue, the light blue, or as Paul called it earlier on in our rehearsal, a pastel blue, cerulean, if you want to be really...
and pink.
And then there's pink for things less than 0. In other words, we haven't met our target. I'm kind of replicating this information here, but here it's more about percentages. Here it's about actual values, if you like. And of course, if I sort by that particular column, you can see that the range is displayed in a different way.
Hey, Julian.
Hello, Paul.
Sorry, quick question. Now you've applied one conditional format, and that gives me a good visual representation of certain things. But
Okay.
what happens if I want to actually draw the user's or the client's attention to data within that even further? So if there's cells between 300 and 500,000, that's really the sweet spot, and I want to make that stand out even further.
Okay, well, I could actually, apply a 4 color range, but we'll do it a slightly different way, I think. Let me add a format rule here. We're going to mess around with the value. So we're going to go a value in between, you said 300,000 and 500,000, I think that's what you said.
Yeah, just for now.
Okay, well, we'll add an icon saying a nice green tick mark. And so what I'm doing is I'm adding a rule which is going to check the value between 300 and 500 and display a nice tick mark. And we'll add that. And as you see, here we are between 3 and 500. We have a tick. 3 and 500, we have a tick. And if I sort, you can actually see, oh, there's only 2 ticks appearing in this particular set of data.
Awesome. So nested conditioning.
So that's conditional formatting, and you can apply several rules to the same data. It's within a grid, and obviously you can do things like you can edit the rules you already have. So I have 3 range colors and this kind of between value. So I can delete them or turn them off and on, and so on and so forth. So, or even clear all the rules, and we're back to square one. We can remove that. So that's the conditional formatting. As I said, that you'll see that if you've been watching these webinars since Monday, you'll see that ability, conditional formatting, Excel style conditional formatting. Suddenly, I can't speak. Excel style conditional formatting appearing all over the place. It's there in our grids, multiple platforms, and here it is in the dashboard as well. The other thing, just to quickly show you, is the ability to add new data sources through the wizard. So we have this new data source wizard. I'm just going to do a quick database. I'm going to specify it's on my personal SQL server here. There's my instance name, and I think I have, yes, I have Northwind, so I'm going to go next. I'm going to create a new query. What did I, oh yes, I was going to look at orders, so we'll drag orders over here. Let's select all of the fields, and as you can see, we've got, I don't want all the shipping stuff. So the query builder builds me my select statement, and I can then say OK, and I finish, and suddenly I have this new data source now. Yeah, I could probably rename it, but I have this new data source now, and so let's quickly use it. We'll add a new chart to the to our dashboard, And, oh, let me see. Let's do order date or a count of order dates, and we're going to do it versus customer ID or something like that. Not that customer ID actually makes much sense in this particular case, but at least you can see how easy it was to add a new data source, generate the SQL for it, create that query, run the query. It's there as a new data source inside my dashboard designer, and then I can do things like add a chart and so on and so forth. So that's the cool new stuff in the dashboard designer. So thank you everybody for listening in and watching. As I say, we'll be doing a blog post to try and answer every single question that we got today as we talk to the team, and maybe we can even talk a little bit about whether the team are thinking about doing a particular feature for 15.2, or at least I can point that out too. So there's Paul's information and my information. And obviously, if you're using 15.1, kudos to you. And if you do get some issues, please, please, please contact support either through the support center or support@devexpress.com. Amanda, it's over to you.
And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Julian and Paul. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.